Theseus, son of Poseidon, was the greatest hero of Athens. But would his bravery be enough to save the lives of his friends and defeat the terrible Minotaur? Let's find out. It all started when King Minos of Crete demanded a yearly sacrifice of Athenian youths. Why? Well, because his son, the Minotaur, had grown tired of eating only bull meat. You see, the Minotaur was a fearsome beast with the head of a bull and the body of a man. It was half-brother to Theseus, but unlike Theseus, the Minotaur was a murderous monster who lived in a giant maze called the Labyrinth. Theseus wasn't going to stand for this injustice, so he volunteered to be one of the yearly sacrifices. Now, sneaking onto the ship carrying the other victims, Theseus made a plan with some friends. Ariadne, daughter of King Minos, would help him escape the labyrinth by giving him a ball of string. Then, if all went well, Theseus would kill the Minotaur and free the Athenians from their obligation to give up their best and brightest to the beast every year. Upon arriving in Crete, Theseus left the ball of string with the others, sneaked off, and made his way to the labyrinth. What kind of monster does King Minos keep in here? As Theseus approached the beast, he could hear the Minotaur roaring. Then it came charging at him, ready to strike. But Theseus was too quick for it, and easily dodged its deadly swipe. The monster was clearly slow and dim-witted, so Theseus knew that his best chance to defeat it was to use his wits. So, as the Minotaur charged at him again, Theseus tied the ball of string around one of its horns. Then, as the beast charged again, he did the same thing. And after a few more swipes, he had the string tied around all four of the monster's horns. Then, pretending to trip over the string, Theseus managed to wrap the ball around one of the Minotaur's legs. And before long, he had the entire labyrinth roped off. Then, seeing that there was no escape, the Minotaur charged one last time, but instead of dodging, Theseus stood his ground, plunged his sword into the beast, and emerged victorious. Now, with the string still attached to the horn, Theseus made his way out of the labyrinth, unwinding the string as he went. Then, running back to the others, he gave them the good news. They were free. Now, many versions of this story exist, but today we're just focusing on the original by Plutarch. In his telling, after Theseus and the others escaped the labyrinth, they sailed back to Athens. But during the journey, Theseus decided to tease Ariadne by pretending to be angry at her for not warning him about the string wrapping itself around his leg. Of course, she was furious and threw herself into the sea. Poseidon, god of the sea, saw what happened and took pity on her. He transformed her into a laurel tree. Then, when her father, King Minos, heard what had happened, he transformed himself into a bull and swam after the girl. However, the sea god's magic was stronger, and Minos was changed into a dolphin instead. Then, as a reward for saving the Athenians, Theseus was given the title king and an extra special treasure. His rear end would never have to touch the ground again. And let me tell you, he definitely took advantage of that power. But alas, like all good things, our time here has come to an end. Are you glad Theseus saved the day? Or would you have preferred a different ending? You can tell us all about it down below. Just make sure to use the discuss feature so everyone can see your comments. And hey, while you're down there, why not hit like and subscribe too? We've got plenty more myths and legends to get through. So join us next time for more godly tales. See ya! Hey, quick question. Did you know that the very first Greek to ever use the word history was none other than Herodotus? That's right, this guy, considered the father of history, is responsible for the word we use to describe everything from ancient myths to the events of yesterday. But how did he get the idea to write about all those stories and events? Well, according to himself, he was inspired by the great deeds of the Persians and Greeks during the Greco-Persian Wars, which allegedly began when the Persians invaded Greece, starting with the Ionian Revolt and leading up to the famous Battle of Marathon. However, Herodotus didn't limit himself to only telling the stories of battles. He also spent time explaining the cultural differences between the Greeks and Persians, showing the different ways of life that each civilization had. And he did this all without losing sight of his main goal: to explain how the Persians and Greeks became involved in the war. In fact, he dedicated the first book of his work to explaining the rise of the Persian Empire under Cyrus the Great, setting the stage for the conflicts that would eventually lead to the war. That's why Herodotus is known as the father of history. Not only did he start a tradition of writing about historical events, but he also showed that not every story is just a battle. There are plenty of moments that led up to that moment, and those are important to understand, too. And even though we don't agree with everything Herodotus wrote, we can all appreciate the effort he put into learning about the world around him and sharing his knowledge with the rest of us.